Hello, what's going on, people? And welcome. Welcome back to Let's Talk Ball. This is Big B, Brian Hanley. Um, the topics that we've been covering, I got with my partner a little bit on this and we talked about it and said, at the beginning we were just kind of doing fluff pieces. Well, he didn't believe that it was necessarily fluff pieces. And I said, well, we weren't really hitting, hard hitting controversial topics. He didn't really respond. And he said, and so I thought, let's take a step in that direction. It's not that we are just going to be this hot take podcast and just do things that are just going to be always controversial. It's not about being controversial in my eyes. It's just talking about what needs to be talked about. Things that people actually care about, respond to, have sent items into us that they want to hear about, what our take is, what they want to disagree with us about. And I know I've mentioned this several times. My brother's influence is that he was a controversial driven, not person, but when it came to sports talk, he was controversy. He loved it. Like I said in the previous podcast, about kneeling, basically what he would make up stuff from time to time and just lie about it just to get people going so he could argue with you. That was his thing. So today we're going to touch on something that a lot of people have opinion on. I have opinion on. We're going to dig into it. And we're going to talk about gays in sports, being gay in the sports world and how that affects everybody involved. So let's talk ball.
Broken up by Tatum. Tipped off. Rachel Harris has it. Here's Jordan. Yes. Secretariat has opened a 22-length lead. Fly ball deep left field. Yes, there she goes. Touchdown. He did what? Yes. LeBron James. It is a grand salami. Bo Jackson unloads on this one. Younger and I'd kick you. Ortiz in the deep right field. Down goes Frazier. He is Mr. November. Touchdown Titans. There are no flags. Curry for the lead.
Perfect. Doesn't even matter if you're gay playing sports. I mean, shouldn't even matter. That's just my opinion. Whether you're gay, whether you're not, it does not matter. First of all, if you are going to try and convince anybody with a sane mind that says, oh, well, there's no gays playing in football or basketball or baseball, or because they try to limit the media. I don't necessarily the media, but the public tries to limit people being gay in sports, and they try to stereotype it into this specific box. And we all know what that stereotype is. It's women being the volleyball, not necessarily volleyball, but the softball player or the basketball player. And they try to put it in that box that's the only gay people that are playing sports. Women, softball, basketball. Not even volleyball doesn't even fall into that. That's what people try to put into this box. They try to, hey, this is where all the gay athletes are, which couldn't be further from the truth. Could not be further from the truth. So basically what you're saying, you're trying to tell people that if we know that walking around in everyday life, one out of, and depending on what stat you read, one out of either 4 or 1 out of every 5 men are gay. So if 1 out of every, let's just go on the high end, 1 out of every 5 men happen to be gay. You're telling me that none of those are playing basketball or football or baseball? I mean, there's not one. Absolutely zero. I mean, come on, people. Come on. I mean, just don't be stupid. That's all that it is. Just don't be ignorant about it. Okay? Just be educated. Understand. The first thing that I learned, and I have never been a gay, homophobic type of a person, but we all that are not gay have those moments of, well, I don't want them looking at me. I don't want them talking about me. And I had a gay friend of mine, and I was young, 21 years old, and just basically said, Brian, I hate to break this to you, but gay men aren't looking at straight men. That's not what they're doing. They know that you're not interested. They're not looking at you. They're not trying to flip you into being gay. First of all, there's no such thing as flipping. So they're not looking at you. So you can etch that out of your mind. So getting back into the meat and potatoes of the sports world, there's guys that are going to be gay that are in your locker room. 1,600 guys in the NFL. 1,600. You're telling me none of those guys are gay? And since that's the case, but it's a macho sport. It's macho. Hey, I'm a man. I'm not gonna have this other man looking at me. And I get it. There's going to be that moment in the locker room. Every man's been and had that moment in the locker room. You're walking around. Who's looking at me? So that can be a problem. That can be a huge, huge problem. But whose problem is it really? That's the thing to think about. Whose problem is it? You have not heard, and there's way too much media going around. There's way too much all of that stuff going around. Camera phones, Facebook Lives, apparently. There's too much media. If there was an incident that happened in a locker room, in a professional locker room, or even in a college locker room, you would hear about it. If there was a fight that went on because a guy he was trying to mess with another guy or something in a locker room, you would hear about that. So that's not going on. That's not happening. So my question is, what's the issue? That's always been my issue. Why does it matter? If you know that if a guy's in your locker room, first of all, you have to know 100% there are gay guys in your locker room. So let's just put that out there. There are. But if they're not interested, that's kind of what my preference was earlier. If they're not interested, then what difference does it make? Be a professional and move on. But it's a society thing. It's a society thing. Kind of like racism is a society thing. It's not that it's a problem, and each individual looks at it differently. And I believe each individual, if it wasn't a society issue, they wouldn't have an issue. But because it's a society issue, they have an issue. And that's what's sad. And I know that, bringing up, politics or whatever into sports is not necessary. It's not what we all want, but it is necessary. They correlate and they run together. I wish they didn't. Don't want them to. But they do. They do. Thinking about in football alone, I know there's been a couple of guys that have come out and, I know the whole, when Michael Sams came out, that was a whole thing. The problem with that, in my opinion, and with all of it, is if you want to be treated equally and you don't want there to be such a big, hey, just treat me like I'm a regular football player. I'm a football player first. And if that's what you want, then why the announcement? That's one argument of it. And that's the argument, that's the side that I'm on. Now, the flip side isn't for me, because what gets tacked on to that is people saying, hey, I'm straight. And I don't come out saying I'm straight. Well, I don't really believe that, because here's the thing. If you flip it into other avenues, into different segments of life, it's not the same thing. We're not trying to say, people that are gay that are coming out are not trying to say that they're special. They wanted to be treated fairly. Well, if nobody knew, wouldn't you be treated? First of all, guys in the locker room, guys know. Okay, that would be number one. Guys aren't dumb. Guys know. And I don't mean because of your mannerisms or anything like that. Guys know. We give guys credit. Guys are stupid. Don't get me wrong. We're stupid. We are dumb individuals for the most part. But there are certain things that guys are extremely intelligent at, and this would be one of those. Guys know. So if you don't want the attention, let's backtrack. Don't want the attention, why the announcement? And then you have a certain segment of people that again, tack on, well, if I'm straight and I don't come out and announce that. And I get that part of it. I understand. But when you're the minority, then it becomes a little bit more difficult. You're just wanting to make sure that everybody treats you equally, knowing exactly who I am. And I can understand that. It is not remotely the same thing as racism. Racism, when you say I want to be treated equally, just me walking down the street, I want somebody to just look at me and not think badly of me just because my skin is a different color. That's all that this means. Not the same thing. I mean, you can't just, I know there's people out there, men and women, that are gay. Then sometimes the stereotype doesn't fit. And the stereotypes in this country are a bad thing. And so what I mean, the stereotype doesn't fit, is there's people that dress a certain way that want everybody to know that they're gay. And there's some people that don't want anybody to know. And they're just, this is how I dress. And it's not that I take that back. It's not that they don't want anybody to know. It's just, I'm gay, but this is how I dress. I don't dress this way because certain gay people dress this way. I don't do that. I'm just an everyday person. This is how I dress. I just happen to be gay. I know that may have come off bad, but that's not how I'm trying to come off. So if it sounds that way, that's not what I'm trying to come off as. It's just, there's certain ways that gay people dress, just like straight people. For instance, certain people with straight people dress crazy, and what people think are crazy, and normal. The same thing with gays. There's certain ways that gay people that dress that we think are crazy, and then normal. And it gets touchy. It gets, just like I did just a second ago, it gets touchy because you're not trying to offend anybody. But I feel like I should be able to talk about whatever I want to talk about and say what I want to say and not be offensive. And that's the whole thing. And I say that to people all the time. If you don't want to offend anybody, then don't say offensive things. So I feel like this is a topic that we can hammer, that we can talk about and not offend anyone, because what my opinion is and what I have to say isn't an offensive topic. It's not an offensive point of view. It's just a point of view. It's just an opinion. And that's okay. Now, tackling in each individual sport, it becomes tricky because, like I said, in football, there's guys that have come out. Basketball, you've had guys that have come out. Baseball, you really haven't heard a lot of guys come out in baseball. But I just don't. I don't know why. I know why. I take that back. I know why people are doing it, why they're coming out. They want to bring more awareness. Hey, we're out here. We're here. There's nothing wrong with us. People think there's something wrong, and that's crazy. That's part of it. People think there's something wrong with you if you're gay. There's nothing wrong with you at all. You just want to be treated equally. I don't see how anybody could ever be upset with somebody that just wanted to be treated equally because of who they were. I mean, that's craziness. But that's kind of the society that we live in. You know what I'm saying? That's where we are right now. That is where we are. And it stinks. And I mean, don't get me wrong. We've gotten better. But just because we gotten better doesn't mean that as a society, it doesn't still suck. I mean, there's lots of things that as a society we've gotten better at. But that doesn't mean that it's still not bad. It just means it was way, way worse. And this would be another one. Now, the whole thing of does sports, or a better thing is, does gay athletes, do they have a place in sports? Well, of course they are. Of course they do. I mean, that was what was somebody sent me something. And do you believe that that gays have a place in sports? Well, first of all, I mean, it was a crazy question, I thought, because I'm like, first of all, if you don't know that they're gay, then clearly they have a place. Second of all, what if you didn't know that somebody was gay and then all of a sudden they come out and they happen to be the best player in the sport? Then what would you say? What would you do? And that's the thing that drives me crazy, is because it's going to take that for it to become so taboo. It's going to take that. You know, in the WNBA, again, like I mentioned earlier, the box, gay women. It's only WNBA or basketball players in general and softball players. That's what you hear about. And I guess it could be, it's not really volleyball, but volleyball is not really a big national sport. It's not really a huge national sport. So that box, you know, that particular sport, you know, and that box, in my opinion, doesn't necessarily classify. But when we're talking about the big ones, that's the box. So, and when in men's sports, you don't hear about hardly any. And they don't have that box. So when you it's going to take somebody getting into that's going to be a very, very good player that's going to come out and be gay. When that's going to happen, I don't know. The first thing is, and the reason that it's going to take that, they tried to make this big deal, like I mentioned about Michael Sam. Well, Michael Sam wasn't a very good football player. And people tried to say, well, it's because he's gay, they're not giving him an opportunity. The one thing that, as far as football is concerned, and any of it, football, basketball, baseball, if you can help that team win, and more importantly, and by winning means money for owners and job security for coaches and GMs, if you're good and you're that dude, they don't care what you're doing as long as you're not getting arrested and getting other people in trouble. They could care less because they want to win. Now, don't get me wrong. I know there's people, boneheaded, ignorant people that are out there and that are going to have their opinions. But for the most part, if this guy can help you and is successful for your franchise, they don't care what you are. They don't care what you do. And that's just the truth. So the box, of men's sports, I mean, you could say it's wide open, but the box doesn't even exist. And to me, that's no, not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a bad omen. Because I don't want there to be a box. I just want people to just be free and be who they are. And don't feel like they have to announce, their sexuality to be accepted. For the most part, guys and gals and people in general in this world that we live in, for the most part, people are good people. They may not understand what you do, but at least they can respect it. And even that old BS argument of, well, just don't bring it around me. What do you mean don't bring it around you? What do you think is going to rub off? I mean, they used to say the same thing about black people. Don't bring that around me. And I used to tease people all the time, and I stopped doing it because I know it made them feel bad. I'm like, hey, my skin's not going to rub off on you. It'll be okay. Well, somebody being gay isn't going to rub off on you. Okay? Relax. Jiminy Christmas. A little more acceptance. And I know they say that these things run hand in hand, but they don't. Like racism and being gay, that they run hand in hand, but they don't. It's not the same. And I don't like people that bring it up and try to make them be the same things. I know I've made a couple of examples, but they were examples of a situation, but they're not the same. And they shouldn't act or want them to be the same. Different fights altogether. And what this is about is people just have to start understanding everybody. Everybody has to just understand each other. I mean, in sports, they always say there's people, I don't want this to be in my sport. I don't want that to be in my sport. I never want this. You shouldn't talk about that. Blah, 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 blah. Just do sports. And then when they don't do something that you want them to do, the first thing that they do is get mad at you. I mean, it's just crazy. So you talk about being gay in sports. And I told you, I'm one of them. No announcement. I don't need you announcing that you're gay. But I do understand everybody's not like me, because my thing is, I don't care whether you are or whether you're not. But some people do. So they want to be accepted for who they are. Well, then just go out there because you know what? If you go out there and do your thing, guys are going to figure out, not just guys, people are going to figure out whether you are or you're not. I mean, if you just go out and you're living your everyday life, and I don't mean behind closed doors, but by all means, if you live behind closed doors, that's not mutually exclusive to whether you're gay or straight. If you don't want to have if you're a public figure and you want to have a private life, by all means, have a private life. I mean, that doesn't mean whatever sexuality that you happen to be, that you have to flaunt it to anybody. I mean, I think that's another thing that people miss and try to hit on. Well, they're flaunting it. They're not flaunting it. I went to dinner. Okay? I'm a guy or a girl. I have a boyfriend or girlfriend. I went to dinner. I'm not flaunting anything. I went to eat. We went to grab a movie. That's not flaunting anything. Oh, and I mean, that's another thing that they kill me when they say this stupid nonsense. It's just, they're flaunting it in our face. How is that flaunting? And I know people talked about, the whole Michael Sam thing. When he got drafted, he was kissing his boyfriend and slamming cake in faces. Did I want to see that? No. Did I look at it? No. Was I bothered by it? No. And the reason I wasn't bothered by it, because it didn't affect me one way or another. I mean, I saw it. I thought it was cheesy and tacky. And the reason I thought it was cheesy and tacky, because I thought it was all for attention. And I thought Michael Sam was an attention grabber. That he didn't care really about the plight of gay people. And I know he came out, this is 2019, he came out with some article this year, or he came out with something, like some interview talking about how the gay community abandoned me. I go, first of all, they didn't abandon you. What did you do for them? I mean, they didn't abandon you. All they did was, hey, you've gone off the deep end, and they disassociated themselves with you, but they didn't abandon you. They could have helped you, but did you help yourself? Is the main thing. I mean, it was crazy talk. I mean, what did they owe you? You came out. You weren't very good. You didn't make an NFL team. Your NFL career was never going to happen. And it didn't. That wasn't the gay community's fault. I mean, how is that their fault? Now, did they try to exploit the platform? Absolutely. And so did you. So, man, I don't want to just bash on Michael Sam, so I digress. However, what needs to be said needs to be said. And that's what he did. And I think that's what drives people crazy. But again, I've said it in multiple episodes, people, you can't paint a broad brush on one individual because of what one person did. You just are not going to be able, you can't just label everybody because of what he did. That's not fair. It's not even remotely fair. Can't do that. And just label, all gay people because what Michael Sams did. I mean, you could see that a mile away, him seeking attention versus wanting to be a real football player. And maybe he knew he wasn't that good. Maybe he knew and thought, you know what? This is my 15 minutes of fame. I don't see the majority of gay athletes, at least the ones that have come out, doing those kinds of things. All they want to do is let everybody know that I'm gay, which, again, I don't agree with. Just go out there and ball. Just go out there and do your thing. Nobody's going to care. I take that back. There's going to be some people that care because there's a lot of ignorant people, but that doesn't mean that you still can't go out there and do your thing, because I guarantee you, if you're out there and you're doing your thing for their team and helping their team win, they're not going to, they might even say something. Oh, I hate it. I hate when he scores touchdowns for us when we win. You understand how stupid a statement that is? And you'll catch people doing that all the time. So it's laughable to me. It's just laughable, Now, as far as the locker room stuff, it can be a touchy situation if you make it a touchy situation. Are guys dipping eyes and stuff like that? That happens with straight people too. So, and if anybody's trying to tell you that hasn't happened, I'm not saying each individual person does it, but it's a locker room. My goodness. It's a locker room. Guys walk around with, you don't have to be just looking for another guy to see another guy. It's a locker room. And I know we got, he was eyeballing me. Really? Relax, brother. Just relax. No, he wasn't. God. And I know I feel passionate. I just, if you haven't figured out by now, people, I have no patience for ignorance and nonsense. I just have no patience for it. None whatsoever. I can't be bothered with it. I won't be bothered with it. I won't try to reason with it. I just have no patience for ignorance and nonsense. That's all. It's not that I think I'm better than anybody or better than anything or anything even remotely like that. I just do not have patience for that. And people that do those kinds of things, that dabble into that world, I don't hang out with. And I don't care if I've been friends with you for 5 minutes or 500 years. If that's your life, it won't be my life. Not 1 second longer. And I think this whole gay and sports thing, I think it touches a button with me because I just don't care. And then you're going to have your ignorant people. Oh, Brian, you must be gay. You don't care. I mean, you're talking about this and then lager. Okay. Again, more ignorance because I'm just comfortable with who I am. And that's Brian. I don't feel like I have to tell everybody I'm straight. I live a life, an everyday life, and people can see that for themselves. And it doesn't matter one way or another to me what anybody else thinks. I'm just doing me. And if everybody just did them, it would be a much better place. But that doesn't happen. And especially when it comes to our sports teams. People get so invested. And I'm not saying they shouldn't. Because I'm one of those. I get invested. I'm crazy. I'm a crazy nut when it comes to my sports teams. But I'm not going to let it affect the way that my team wins or if we win. That's my whole thing. I refuse to let that get in the way of my team winning football games. So if my guy is gay or he's straight, do your job and I won't care. And if everybody felt that way, I think it would be great. There's not a lot of times where I want people to change their opinions and be who they are or not be who they are, whatever the case, that I'm trying to influence you to do something else. But this time, I just want people to be better. That's all. I just want people to be better when it comes to this, not make people feel uncomfortable. There are times when, getting out of your comfort zone and being uncomfortable is necessary. And maybe I should flip that. Maybe this is. And maybe if you're comfortable not being around people that are gay, get out of your comfort zone. And be comfortable with it. Not necessarily hanging out with them. I mean, you don't have to hang out. I'm not saying that. I'm not telling you not to. Be an adult about it. You understand what I'm trying to talk about? All I'm saying is don't let that get in the way of you having a good time. Just be who you're going to be. And this the whole sports thing, I don't think that it's like I said, it's a big societal issue. And it drives me crazy. But I think if we just learn to deal with each other, and I know we could say that for a lot of stuff, but sport, nothing is going to happen to your team if you have a gay player on it. And again, just for the record, you have a gay guy on it. Or you have a gay gal on it. And again, I apologize, ladies. I know I've spent a lot of time talking about men. But for the most part, I believe women don't care if women are gay in their sport. I believe that. But I do believe that women care if men are gay for the team that they root on. That's weird, isn't it? That's weird. And you've heard it. We've all heard it. It's one thing for a man to say, I don't want any men on there. But it's another thing for a woman to say the same thing. And they do. Which, again, it just makes it weird for me. I don't know. I know it's tough. This is just a podcast. I'm just trying to reach as many people as I can and talk to as many people as I can and listen to what you guys have to say and form opinions on certain stuff. But societal things are tricky, but I'm not going to shy away from them because, like I said before, I believe they need to be talked about. You know, I believe they need to be talked about. And that's my personal opinion. I'm never going to shy away from anything that might be controversial. You know, I haven't really done it. I did it in the last episode, about kneeling. And like I said, my brother, had he been doing this with me, that'd have been the first thing that we talked about. I try to be like him a little bit in that realm, but I'm not Robert. However, I do think that this mouthpiece that we have in this platform has given me, and you guys have helped me with it, has given me an extra boost to talk about these things and not have to feel bad about offending everybody. It's not that I do in an everyday life, because if you know me, I'll say whatever I want and won't really think about it. Well, this is a podcast. I want people to listen. So I'm not trying to offend everybody. But at the same time, you got to take a step back and say, hey, these are things that need to be talked about. It's not about offending. It's about getting the information out and letting the people decide and letting them hear. And if somebody agrees with you, great. It's just to get the conversations going. And I like when the conversation's getting going, because that makes it fun. Thank you guys again for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. Again, continue to send your comments, questions, everything. Again, for all the taglines, Instagram, we are on LTB Podcast. Again, on Instagram, it is LTB Podcast. On Twitter, it's at LTB Podcast 1. On Twitter, it's at LTB Podcast 1. And on Facebook, it's Let's Talk Ball Podcast. Again, on Facebook, it's Let's Talk Ball Podcast. Again, you can catch us on all the platforms that are out there: Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Music, Google Play, Podbean, SoundCloud. Check us out. Spread the word. We're just getting started. We've got a few more episodes from the first season. This is episode 15, so we got 5 more. We're going to get to 20 for the first season. Again, I appreciate everything. I know my partner appreciates everything that you guys have been doing. Just keep sending us the questions, keep sending us the feedback, and we'll keep pumping these things out for you. Thank you guys, and aloha. In the words of my brother Robert, aloha. Let's Talk Ball is produced by myself, Brian Hanley, and Darren Howard at Mach 1 Productions. Editing, music, intro, graphic design, cover art are also done by our Director of Operations, Darren Howard at Mach 1 Productions. Research, fact-checking by myself, Brian Hanley. The Let's Talk Ball podcast is brought to you by the LTB Network.